Hey everyone, this is Hayden from Neutron Insight, and today I'm bringing you an early access review for Satisfactory. Technically the game's been out for over a year now, and it's just released on Steam and is currently discounted slightly, so I figured now is probably a good time to see where the game is at and if it's worth your hard-earned money in its current state. Let's get started by looking at graphics. Let's start by taking a look at the art style. So the art style of the game fits well with the style, as you can imagine. So it's quite industrial, with the buildings having these sharp, angled edges, and they have these satisfying mechanical movements that are well fleshed out. The game outside of the factories looks quite cartoonish, from the world itself to the creatures that inhabit it, with the exception of the massive spiders, which we'll get to a little bit later. Spoiler alert, they're absolutely disgusting. Technically, the factories and the components themselves all look good. The biomes are varied and interesting. There's naturally some flat textures around, especially when it comes to these rocky areas. But overall, the game does look good, and with some additional polish through the early access phase, it'll probably end up looking great. Moving on to how the game sounds, I'll go ahead and start with music because there's not an awful lot here. It is a bit catchy, if it is a tiny bit repetitive. I've had the soundtrack occasionally going through my mind when I'm trying to sleep, which I can tell you for a fact isn't fun, but there's no real fault of the game and more on me for playing it a little bit too much. When it comes to sound effects, however, the sound of the automated machinery coming from the factory is great, and it gives you this real sense of just how productive you're being. The rest of the effects are relatively simplistic. As you can tell, the majority of the development focus here is put into the creation of the factories themselves, which does make sense given what the game is essentially trying to achieve here. So let's move on to the gameplay. So this game can be played in either single player or multiplayer. Naturally, it'll take a little bit longer to accomplish anything in single player, but multiplayer is riddled with bugs and netcode stability issues right now, which only gets worse as your base continues to grow. Random deaths and other weirdness is pretty much a guarantee. From my experience, this wasn't a huge deal, but it was still quite annoying when you're in the middle of exploring a new resource patch and your character just randomly flops over dead. So exploration is a part of the game, and it's required to scope out new resources, but as of right now it's quite underwhelming. I mean, outside of the power slugs, which are converted and can be used as these overclocking batteries, there isn't much reason outside of this to explore the map, unless, like I said previously, you're looking for new resource nodes. Combat as well is solid if it is unrefined. Hits are meaty and you know when you've hurt an aggressive life form, but it is mostly a case of swinging at the thing until it dies. It's not a strong point of the game as you would probably expect. So with all of this combined then, just how replayable is the game? So in both single player and multiplayer, once you've completed your factory and you've reached the maximum tier, of which right now it's 7, there's little really pulling you back in for a second playthrough, at least for me. The good thing though is that there is mod support. Mods are available on the mod launcher for the game itself. There's some quality of life improvements there and also some content, so that's promising to see so early on in early access, so hopefully that just continues to grow. So with that being said, just how good value is the game in its current state? So as mentioned, the content right now goes all the way up to tier 7, which in our multiplayer game took about 30 hours to reach, and bearing in mind there were 4 of us there. If you're a single player, expect this to take a fair bit longer. So there's a solid amount of content here really, and this is only going to continue to expand over the coming months and years, so I don't personally have a problem with it from a value perspective. There's no microtransactions here either, I'm happy to announce, so you're getting everything here with your initial purchase, which is great. So to start to wrap this up, let's go over some PC specifics here. Let's start with optimization. So being in early access, you'd be forgiven for thinking that this game probably doesn't run brilliantly right now. I can tell you for a fact that it's surprisingly well optimized given how early in development it is. Even the massive factories still run decently, and the view distance really is quite impressive. From a high point you can see across most of the map with a stable frame rate, so this was quite a surprise for me given how early the game still is in its development. With the field of view, this is quite customizable right now and it's decently variable, nothing to really complain about here. Aspect ratios, 21:9 support is here and all the usual ones that you would expect, so that's absolutely fine. And keyboard and mouse support, given this game is only on the PC right now I believe, there's nothing to really complain about here, standard stuff, and I have no complaints. So now we come to the verdict. I'm not going to give a score for early access reviews, but right now if you plan on playing this game in multiplayer, personally, I'd probably wait a few months until they sort out some of the stability issues with the netcode. For single player, I'd say this is worth getting right now. Do I think it's worth the full price on Steam of £28? I would say it depends. At the discount of around 25%, I'd say that this is definitely worth it for sure, and around that point then it'll be about £20. But if you like games such as Factorio and like the idea of being translated well into a 3D world, then you're probably going to get a lot out of this game. Thanks for watching this early access review, everyone. If you liked the review, please leave a like on the video, leave a dislike if you didn't like the content, and subscribe if you want to see any future reviews. Please leave any comments below if you'd like to share your opinion or if you have some feedback for me on this video. I'll leave a playlist at the top left if you want to watch any further game reviews from 2020 so far. So thanks again everyone for watching, and I'll see you in the next review.